My name's JoAnn Loulan, and this is a tape about fanning the flames. And this is not for firefighters. This is for lesbians who are with somebody, and it has like, you know, the fire is sort of like, honey, are you awake? You there? Yeah, I'm here. What do you want? Nothing. Just want to know if you were here. Yeah, I'm here. Night, honey. You know that routine. I know we all know that routine, and if you don't know that routine, you're terrified that routine is coming because you've been through that routine before. And this time it's different. You know, it's always different. It's always different. That first 6 weeks, this one is always going to be different. You know, this is the one that I'm going to have sex with however I want to, whenever I want to, in whatever ways. And we're going to, you know, jump through fields of daisies, and we're going to have wind blowing in our hair, and we're going to tie each other up, and we're going to do everything we want, and she's going to love it, and I'm going to love it, and we're going to just go off into sex couple heaven together, and it's just going to be so fabuloso. And along about a year, it's sort of like, you know, when did we have sex the last time? And then you start into those arguments. No, we had sex last week. No, we haven't had sex for a month. We had it last week. Don't you remember? Let's see. Was it before or after Dynasty? I can't remember. No, I know. No, it was, no, let me think. Now, I know we had sex last week. Well, when? Which day? You know, so this is the kind of conversations you start getting into after about a year. So what I wanted to talk about was how it is that we fan the flames. In my study that I did, it showed that lesbian couples started dramatically, the sex life dramatically dropped off after the first year. And then it kept, you know, it's sort of like Beethoven's Ninth. You know. It kept dropping off more and more and more and more until it was sort of a little peck, good night, night, honey, and that's your sex life. What do you do for sex? Kiss, we kiss. So how is it that you fan the flames? Well, the first thing that we have to do is we have to get out those little girls. Oh, those little girls with broken heart. Don't you love listening to me talk on and on about that little girl with a broken heart? I think that's where we have to start because, see, I think that, you know, Freud, now, and you know, Freud had some, like, really weirdo things to say, but he also had some cool things to say. And one of the things he said, well, just boil it down. He didn't say this in German or anything, but, you know, sex is the first thing to go. I mean, he didn't actually say this, but I mean, in that way. I like getting things really simple so we understand it. Means sex goes first. Okay? So sex goes, and what do you do when sex goes? Well, the first thing that I say is, okay, if sex goes, or sex slows down, or sex isn't any fun anymore with your partner, then I think that part of what we need to do is turn to those little girls and find out what's happening with the little girl inside of us, or the little boy inside of us. And how is it that we do that? You know, because it's so hard when we're in a relationship, because one of the wonderful things about being with somebody is you can blame everything on them. I love that part of being in a relationship. It's the best part, I think. I think that's why we get in relationships. Because it's such a drag walking around with yourself, blaming yourself for everything, you know. Yeah, man, my life isn't going well because of me. What a drag. I better get somebody so I can blame it on someone. So, and it doesn't matter. She wants to have sex and you don't, or she doesn't want to have sex and you do. See, it doesn't matter which side you're on. It's their fault. She wants to have sex too fast. She wants to have it too slow. She's the one that doesn't have orgasm. She's the one that has them so fast it intimidates me, so I don't want to have sex with her. You know, I found out, you know, 15 years ago that she faked an orgasm, so I don't want to have sex with her anymore because she's a liar and not truthful and honest. You know, aren't you glad you found some reason to not have sex with her anymore? You know, it's like we love to blame anything we can on anybody else that we can. So the first place to start, I think, when sex starts to die is to start taking care of our kids inside. One of the things that we do is we choose somebody, as many of you have heard me say many times before, we choose somebody who's going to do permanent child care. So our 3-year-old chooses our partners. They get attracted to somebody that feels familiar. Somebody's going to treat us just exactly like our parents treated us. Oh, isn't it just so much fun? And then what happens is that the longer we stay with this person, the longer we stay intimate, get connected, be with this person, the more opportunity there is for our little kids with the broken hearts to become available. So when we're in another situation in which memories start coming up, or we start to interact in ways that we interact with those people that brought us up, when we're starting to get more and more intimate, And the ways in which we do that is, we combine our incomes, we move in together, we start wearing the same clothes, we start ditching the friends that the other one doesn't like, we start reading the same books, watch the same TV, we start watching TV even though we hate it because she watches TV. We stop watching TV because she won't have a TV in her house, so we go through all these changes to try and get more and more and more connected, we think. And we set up these situations that so much remind us of how it is that we were raised. And why is it that we would want to be sexual then? It's very hard. When we get these little kids exposed and when they're not taken care of, it's hard then for the teenagers and the grown-ups to still remember to have fun with each other. It's hard when our little kids are scared and they feel left out or they feel not taken care of by their partners. It's very hard for these little kids because then they start acting out in ways that we don't even notice. Because we're walking around with our grown-up face and we're walking around going to our grown-up jobs, or we're walking around going to our welfare appointments, or walking around going to school, we're rolling around going to different places. And it's so hard for us because it's like we don't want those little kids with broken hearts to be here. We already went through that. We already grew up once, so why do it again? Well, because the kids then influence what goes on, and they especially influence our sex lives. In my study that I've done of lesbians, I found that 38% of them were survivors of childhood sexual abuse. And so if you have a kid that was a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and they're being in a sexual relationship with another person, and the kid starts getting more and more and more available because they're feeling safer and safer and safer, or it's feeling more and more familiar, so the kid gets to be out, then she often doesn't want to be sexual. And it's hard when we're not taking care of that little kid to remember to be sexual. Because the kid is the one that often is running our whole lives, that little kid inside of us. So if sex is stopping for you in your relationship, it can be very valuable to start with the youngest self inside, to go to the baby, to go to the little girl with a broken heart. And I've got a tape that talks specifically about this that you can use, or information in my book that you can use on healing and taking care of this little kid with a broken heart. So I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not going to talk more about that because you can get that other places. But I want to implant that concept because unless we're taking care of our kids, then our teenagers and our grown-ups sort of have no basis. They don't get to come out and play. And when we first got together with somebody, the little kids sort of had to take a back seat while the teenagers went cuckoo banana cakes, I love that teenage energy. I just love teenagers, it's so cool. And they're just like, oh, this is how you do it, they're just charged up. They're just running on estrogen poisoning. They're just hyped. They're just like off and running anywhere, no matter what, just let me go do something, let me do anything, I'm gonna do something. They're hanging out on street corners, they're hanging out with each other in their bedrooms, they're just hanging out, they're just hanging, listening to music, hanging out, being with each other, hanging out, talking, moving, calling, all the time, and one of the things that we are taught as teenagers, any of us that survived our teenage years are now grown-ups, and one of the things that we were taught as teenagers is how to stop being a teenager. A primary goal of all adults is to teach teenagers how to stop being teenagers. It is so weird, So we were raised with this same idea. We were raised with the same way to stop having those feelings. And also as lesbians, I think, we didn't even know that those were those feelings, most of us. We didn't know that those were sexual feelings. We just thought we loved our girlfriends. We just thought we were best friends. We just thought we wanted to spend the night every night because we wanted to talk and everything and all that. And most of us didn't know that all that also we wanted to put our fingers in their vaginas and, kiss their nipples and stuff like that. And we didn't even know that. And then for the lesbians who did know it when they were teenagers, sometimes it was even harder because of the fact that they knew they were lesbians. And they didn't know other lesbians, so they were afraid to ask somebody else in the gym room, are you, hey. And it was scary. And then you hear the wonderful, rare stories in which lesbians were able to be teenage lesbians together, and it's just so fabulous. What a treat. What an exciting, wonderful treat. But that's a very small percentage of us. Most lesbians were taught as teenagers, either subconsciously we didn't even know it was happening, or we did know it was happening, we were told it was awful. Many lesbians sent to psychiatrists at teenage years, to get them straightened around, do something, was something wrong with you. Whether or not they told anyone they were lesbians, they were sent to shrinks to make them change. And even if it didn't get to that level, just that unconscious stuff of we didn't know that those were sexual feelings. We weren't allowed to act on them. We weren't allowed to make fools out of ourselves. We weren't allowed to go out and be in the middle of jerkdom like other teenagers were and ask each other, freak out about a pimple and do all that kind of stuff with our girlfriends. Now, some of us did that with boys and have a little more knowledge about how it is that teenagers do because we were with boys. But those lesbians that weren't with boys, you know, that all those feelings had to be squelched. They had to be turned into something else. You had to stop doing that. You had to not be. You had to settle down, you had to calm down, you had to just stop being. And those feelings, so often those feelings that we could associate with sexual turn-on were turned off, were hid away, were not even named. We didn't even know what to call them, we didn't call them anything. And so these teenage lesbians in each of us is sort of hiding out. And we let her loose in that first 6 weeks, 6 months of a new relationship, you know. And then after that, we turn into grown-ups and we turn into little kids with broken hearts, and our teenagers have to stop it and slow down and get a job and pay your bills and, you know, start acting mature and go to therapy and go to couples counseling and go to mediations and go, you know, work with your collective and do all the things because you stop being teenagers, okay? So we don't help ourselves out either. And one of the things, I think the most important thing about fanning the flames for couples is how could you be a teenager again? You know, one of you could go to like a shopping center and call the other one on the phone. That's how we did it, you know. It's like you left your girlfriend, you went with your mom down to the mall. Oh, I gotta call Dixie, man. I'll be right back, Mom. You know, it's like, JoAnn, you were just with Dixie all morning. I know, but I gotta tell her this thing. I forgot to tell her this really important thing, Mom. I'll be right back. You know, your mom goes off and you're like, oh, Dixie, man, I gotta tell you this thing. And can you believe? And you just talk about, and I don't even know, what did we talk about for so many hours, you know? What did we talk about? I just wonder what we talked about, but I know I loved it. So how is it that we get that teenage energy back into our sex lives as old, married, boring couples? We can start with, we are old, married, boring couples. I mean, it's boring. We're old, married lesbians that are boring. Our sex life is boring, 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 dull, dull, dull. And that's another part of it, is just admitting that it's dull. You know, this is dull. And you know why I don't want to have sex with you? I'm sort of bored. It's sort of like I know everything that's going to happen. It's like going to the same movie 50 times, you know? It's like... And our sex life is not like Rocky Horror. I'm sorry. It's like, it's not that much fun. No squirt guns, no umbrellas, no toilet paper. No dress-ups. All of which are great ideas about how to get your teenager out, you know? Dress-ups, squirt guns, toilet paper, umbrellas. You could do all kinds of things with your sex life if you were willing. The scary thing, you know, when I talk to couples about getting innovative in their sex lives, bring a squirt gun to bed, squirt each other, you know? I mean, what is it that you could do? Try sex toys that you haven't used before. There are these places in which you can go to, all woman-owned, or you can write in the back of Ms. Magazine or advertisements for all the stores. Eve's Garden in New York, Good Vibrations in San Francisco, and Harmony in Albuquerque. And you can right away, and they'll send it to you. No one will even know that you got sex toys. They'll all send you catalogs that you can go and you can choose out things and you can, writing a check to the woman's store where I can get sex toys. Okay, let's not tell anybody, okay? All right. And you can get, and they'll send them to you in your own house. You don't even have to go in the store. And you can find exciting, wonderful new ideas to do. Now, if you were a teenager, you'd be willing to do new different things. If your buddies were doing it with you. Of course, everybody has to go in unison as teenagers. You have to go little units, little pods, you know. I often wonder how we lived through our teenage years because we did such crazy things. We hitchhiked everywhere. I don't know why we're not all dead on the streets, you know. It's like... And I'm not necessarily suggesting that we should go out and do dangerous things, but what about allowing our teenagers to come out so we can do fun, new, different things? You could trade off in a couple of every other month. Somebody comes up with a new idea. And you can make a list of things you're not willing to do. Okay? I will not let you put the television up my vagina. In fact, I will not even let you put the hand control from the television up my vagina. Okay? But we could make a list of things I'd let you put in my vagina. So you could have a list of things you're not allowed to put in your vagina, that your partner's not allowed to put in your asshole, or maybe you don't even like things in your asshole. So you can make a little list of the things that you're not willing to do. No, I won't do it. No, you can't make me. No, I won't. No. Don't even suggest that it's caca, it's dirty, and my mother would turn over in her grave as she heard me even thinking, even writing on this list of things I won't do is making me sick. So you can make a list of things that you will not do, that's it. But if it's not on the list, and she thinks of it, and what's going to be amazing, you're going to find out, is the more you try new things each month, the more you're going to start sneaking little things off your lists, you know? Oh, no, I never had that on my list of things I wouldn't do. No, you're mistaken. That was a list a long time ago. I've revised that list, you know, last night. See what it's like to let in. Gee, what kinds of things? Write down all kinds of things that you've heard of people doing. All kinds of things that you've heard people put in their vaginas and their assholes. Now, I'm not saying things that are violent, obviously. I'm not saying things that you don't want to do. I'm saying, how is it that we can be creative? Because we're so much working on, no, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. The lesbian community says you can't do it. Lesbians don't do that. Women don't do that. Adults don't do that. Adults don't ride in dryers with, you know, the television controls in their vaginas. They just don't do it. Well, what would happen if you did? I mean, what do you think would happen if you put the television controls in your vagina, went to the laundromat with your buddies, and rode in the dryers? I mean, what do you think would happen? It might feel really wonderful. It could be a kick. What if you went and called your friends on the phone, and you had, like, you called several different people on the phone, you had the telephone company will do a conference call, and you could have group sex over the telephone. You know, work it out with another couple that, you know, instead of ruining your relationship and getting involved with them, call them up on a conference call. And you could all have sex together. I mean, it could be really fun. There's all kinds of things that you can do to make things interesting if you let your teenagers out. Teenagers will not ruin your lives. Yeah, well. But if we allowed our teenagers to come out in a loving atmosphere in which our teenagers weren't having to rebel, weren't having to act out, weren't having to do outrageous things and self-destructive things to make a point at home, you know, if we could just let our teenagers be out and come up with these wonderful, fabulous ideas, let their minds just go off, let ourselves just do things just to see what it would be like to do it. Rent those teenage movies. You know, they have about 1 billion teenage movies out right now, and they're just wonderful. But it's like, remind yourself what it's like to be a teenager. Let yourself dress up as the characters in those little movies. Let yourself dress up as the little girl in your math class that you really wanted to just go down on in 8th grade, but you didn't even know that's what you wanted to do. But you were always looking at her lap. God, why do I keep looking at Melissa's lap, you know? I don't know, man. Why do I want to lie next to Melissa at the slumber party? You know the slumber parties and you had to lie next to a particular girl? Ah, see? Now, what if you imagined you were at a slumber party again and your partner acted out the role of that little girl that you wanted to always get next to at the slumber parties? It's so hard for us as partners when somebody wants to do something innovative or different or wants to pretend that we're somebody different. Ooh, ooh, vampires, bad, bad, bad. You know, it's like they're not allowed to have fantasies about anybody else. You know, call the relationship police. They're not allowed to want to dress up as anything because if you dress up as anything, then you want to get out of your unreal self, and then you want to get out of reality, and you want to avoid reality, and you want to, yawn. I mean, what's wrong with pretending? Okay, listen, if you'll pretend that you're her girlfriend from 8th grade one night, then the next night she'll pretend that she's your girlfriend from 8th grade. You could do this. You could make it be fun. Don't have to be competing for this nameless woman that she hasn't seen in 30 years. You know? You could just let it be part of the sexual fantasy and energy that's inside of each of us, if you were willing. You know, it's back to this little girl with a broken heart. Have we forgotten them? Because who balks at this? Who balks at acting out fantasies, doing different kinds of things, bringing innovative things into the house, is this little girl with a broken heart. Now, sometimes it's because she's actually suffered sexual abuse, and so she's really afraid of what's going to happen. So that could be part of it. And it may also be that she's tried things before and she's felt like a real dope, and so she's embarrassed. And it may be that she's never tried anything before, so she thinks she's like a wimpy lover, and so like if you want to bring in new things, it makes her feel inadequate and all that kind of stuff. And so much of that has to do with how it is that we can heal this little girl with a broken heart. You know, in my survey, the women who were survivors of abuse had no less satisfaction with their sex lives than the women who were not survivors of sexual abuse. Did that come out clearly? That they had as much satisfaction with their sex lives as anybody else in the survey. I think it's a wonderful thing to remember for those of you that are incest survivors, for those of you who do have little girls with broken hearts that are really afraid of being sexual, of trying anything new, of letting go, of getting out of that, that place of control and making sure everything's monitored and no one's going to hurt you and all that. I mean, part of what goes on is that little girl gets to be taken care of with this idea. She gets to be taken care of, and the teenager and the grown-up get to have fun. They both can be going on at once. See, part of the problem if you were a survivor of abuse is that sexuality is abuse. It's sort of like when I've worked with many women who grew up in alcoholic or violent homes, and they say anger equals violence. Anger means you'll be violent. No, no, no. Anger is a feeling. Violent is an activity. You can be angry and you don't have to hurt people. You can have sexual feelings. You can have sexual, you can have letting go sexually and not have to have it turn into something that's abusive or scary or outrageous or out of control. It doesn't have to be that way. You can set up safe situations. So if you have a little girl with a broken heart that's a survivor of some sort of abuse, it doesn't have to be sexual abuse always, to have her get freaked out when those big feelings start coming, when somebody's getting intense around her or when she's feeling intense, just that, that energy, it scares kids that grew up in abusive and crazy homes. It scares kids that were sexually assaulted outside the home. It's scary. So what you do is you stop what you're doing and you go take care of that little kid. Because I'm not saying she should be ignored. What I am saying is that the teenager and the grown-up deserve to have fun as well. They deserve to play. They deserve to be excited. They deserve to have kind of sex that they want. They deserve to have something new happening. Often when I work with couples, what they get into is the yes-no syndrome, where somebody says yes to sex and somebody says no to sex. It doesn't really even matter who's doing what, although it's seen as a very personal issue. Betty Ann does not want to have sex, and Sally Sue does want to have sex. And it's seen as a really personal issue between Betty and Sally, and it isn't, really. It's part of what goes on when our little kids aren't taken care of, that we set up a balance there. If somebody's going to say yes, then somebody has to say no. Because what if everybody was saying yes? Uh-oh. Big trouble. There might just be sort of unmitigated fun at home. Uh-oh, what if there was just fun? What if everyone there was having fun? What if all of you were having fun? What if both people in the relationship were having a good time? Uh-oh. What would happen then? We're so taught, every culture teaches this. Every culture teaches that fun is like, okay, you can have fun like at this place at this time for this amount of time, but then you can't have any fun after that, and you can only have so much fun because we all have to work, and we all have to be like really bummed out, and we all have to really be in a toil, So you're not allowed to have fun. And if your relationship is having hard times, so often I've had people that the relationship is going through hard times, and it sort of equals that then you can't have sex and you can't have fun anytime because you're like in a hard time. And that's not true. Your teenagers could still be being sexual together. Another idea that comes up often in working with couples, and one is saying yes and one is saying no, is to have the yes person be sexual with herself with the no person there, so that there's still some connection, that the yes person masturbates, that the yes person can go ahead and masturbate with the no person holding her, with the no person watching herself, the no person watching herself going, I think this is gross, I think this is awful, I think this is horrible, and I can't believe that she's doing it, and she's having fun, and then letting go of those perceptions and saying, look at that body moving, look at that body, listen to that sound, the smell, the energy that's happening when someone's having sex with herself. What an incredible gift that the yes person gives if she's willing to do that with the no person present. What an incredible gift of her sexuality. It's so hard for us. I'll continue to use this configuration because it's a simplistic one, but it could be about any issue. It could be about dildo, no dildo. It could be about vibrator, no vibrator. It could be about oral sex, no oral sex. It could be about things in vaginas, nothing in vaginas. It could be about anal sex, no anal sex. It could be about how often you have sex. It doesn't matter what the argument is. It doesn't matter how you set up the polarization. What matters is how can you work with it. So for instance, with the yes-no people, I often have the yes people say, well, I don't want to do that. be turned on, I want to be excited, but I want her to do it, and I want her to do it in this way, and I want her to do it this often. Well, unfortunately, we can't program other people. It does not work that way. And for the no people to say, well, she pushes me all the time, she wants to have sex all the time, this is what she wants all the time, and it's like, well, you can't make her not want to have sex. You can't make her not want to be sexual. You can't make her get away from her own sexual feelings. So what is it that we do when we're in whatever polarization it is, that we learn how it is that we could actually accept who this other person is? It's so hard because it's like, we don't even accept the way they brush their teeth. How are we supposed to accept how it is that they want their vagina done? How often they want their vagina done? I like a little on the left, more a little bit on the right. No, don't put it up too high. Oh, yeah, that feels really good. Oh, no. It's like, how is it that we're supposed to accept that when we're not in on it? It's like, if we're not in on it, if it's not what we want to be doing, then we don't want to do it. If it's not the way we want it, then we don't want to do it. If she doesn't desire me and is just having sex with me because I asked her to have sex with me, then it doesn't count. And if she wants to have sex all the time, it just proves that she doesn't want me for anything else except sex. She doesn't really love me. I'm totally an object to her. It's like, we could have little Whiners America, little T-shirts. I'm a sex Whiners of America. How is it that we use that? Sex is such a taboo subject. We're willing to start owning our stuff in other areas. Oh, yeah, I'm really slobby around the house because you're really neat. You piss me off, so I like to throw things on the floor. I hope you trip on them when you come home, I leave dirty dishes in the sink just to irritate you, if we would just really tell the truth. And, through the miracles of therapy and about 20 years of getting old, we're willing after we're about, 55 or 60 to admit to some of these things. Sex is such a taboo subject, though, that we aren't willing to admit we do it with sex. Because sex is a very sacred, holy union. Now, I don't know about you, but I have done some things in sex that are not sacred at all, and I wouldn't particularly say it made a union. I got off, and so sex could just be for fun. I know it's sort of an odd thought. But it's so hard for us to let sex just be fun and let ourselves just get off with it. We have to hold to our beliefs about how it's going to be, and it's going to be our way, and it's going to be how we want it when we want it. So one of the ideas that I have about fanning the flames is what I like to call devotion and surrender. Ew, bad words, bad. Especially for women in the world. We are set up because, of course, we've been taught to acquiesce and be passive and surrender all of our lives. But that's not the kind of surrender I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is how about just for, 30 seconds or something, see if the world comes to an end, you gave up your position. Everybody breathe, okay? Give up my position! You might have a conversation with your parents, bring them into this and say, I'm going to give up my position about sex for just an hour. We'll see what happens. Don't tell your partner you're doing this. Don't tell anybody you're doing this. Just explain to your parents that you're going to give up your position about sex for an hour. Now, you may say, my parents? I'm supposed to call up my mom and say, Mom, I'm giving up my position about sex for an hour? No, I'm talking about the parents that live in your head. Those parents that are all the time going, I can't believe you're doing that. And you're a lesbian on top of it all? Oh, my God. Well, if you're going to be a lesbian, at least don't have sex, okay? And if you're, all right? And if you're going to have sex, at least don't have fun, all right? Okay, Mom. All right. Okay, thanks a lot. So, what if you gave up your position for just an hour? And then you worked up to giving up your position for an hour with your lover. So that 1 hour once a week, maybe. I don't want to get radical. I don't want to change your life. Don't change your life. Changing your life is a big hassle, so don't change your life. Just change it for an hour. Just see what would happen if you gave up your position for just 1 hour. So that would look like, for instance, if you've said no. See what would happen if you said yes for 1 hour and you said, you know what? These are the things that are absolutely taboo. I will not do them. But I guess, all right, I'm trying this experiment, all right, for 1 hour. Okay, go ahead, do what you want. I'm not going to have fun, but go ahead and do what you want. And what if the yes person was willing for 1 hour? Of course, what's going to happen is it won't be the same hour, right? But, just, progress, not perfection. So what if the yes person for 1 hour was willing to be sexual under the conditions that the no person has presented? Meaning, the no person has said, I'm willing to set aside my position for an hour. I've apologized to my parents. I've told them, don't worry, I won't have fun again for a week. And so I'm willing to be sexual with you. And what if you, as the yes person, were willing to give up your position, because you want her coming on to you like a dog on a bone, and you were willing, as the yes person, to give up that position for just an hour. And being willing to be sexual under these disgusting conditions. If she's not turned on, she had to apologize to her parents to have sex with me. What is this weirdo shit? You been listening to that tape from that woman in California again? It's scary for us to surrender our positions, whatever they are. See, it doesn't matter what they are, because if you're the yes person and you're going around going, well, I'm so cool, I want to have sex, I'm into sex, I love sex, I'm willing to have fun, and she's the one that won't do it. Well, then how come you're with her? See, my secret theory, it's not really much of a secret, is it? My secret theory is that yes people choose no people so that someone else will say no. So they can continue to be cool. It's why women who love being in therapy choose people who don't want to be in therapy to be involved with. So that they can go around going, well, in my therapy, of course, if you went to therapy, well, of course, I know you don't want to go to therapy, but if you did, you'd learn how to do it. So for us therapy junkies, of course, we love to hook up with somebody who doesn't know how to spell the word therapy. Therapy? What's that? You mean you go to somebody once a week and talk to them? Are you kidding? About you're out of your mind, and you pay them money? That's the sickest thing I've ever heard. So of course, we're like, oh, where are you? Let me find you. Here, I've got my therapy drip. Anybody in the room not what therapy is? Oh, good, I want to be with you, Raise your hand. And we love that. We love doing that because then we get to be the groovy one. It's like, but we love those people so we can feel better than they are. And of course, no people choose yes people. I mean, this is obvious. Why would a no person choose another no person? You would never get to do anything. I think you'd break up with them in about an hour and a half. You're kidding. You're going to say no, too? It's fine with you to not. Are you kidding? You'd either go immediately and find a yes person to have an affair with, or you would turn into a yes person. So what if we were willing to own that and change that? See what would happen if we threw the system off. I do have a friend who really does apologize to her parents for things that her lover does. This is what I love. She has these long conversations with her parents in her head, saying, I'm really sorry that she does not have the respect that I have for you. I know how important it is to pay your bills on time, and I am so sorry that she doesn't have respect enough for you, that she won't pay her bills on time. Instead of harping on her lover, that's what she does. She has these discussions with her parents because, after all, that's where the problem lies. It doesn't really lie with your lover, because you chose her for a very particular reason, and don't tell me you did not know. And that's what we do. So yes people find no people find yes people who have orgasms with, when they just had an orgasm. And then people who have never had an orgasm, they find each other immediately so they can intimidate each other and make each other feel like shit. It's like... And it's so hard for us to give it up because we chose that person for a very important particular reason. And we refuse to learn the lesson. We refuse to surrender to it and be devoted to that lesson. We want to make it their fault that we have a particular lesson to learn. It's like, how did you get in my movie, after all, When you very carefully went out and picked them out and said, you, come with me. So what if we were willing to give up this particular role in our movie and apologize to our parents? Try that the next time you're going to go to be sexual with your partner. See what it would be like to apologize for it out front, right there with your parents in your mind, instead of just not doing it so that you can not have fun and you can keep their rules. And what if you wrote down all the rules you have about sex? Sex isn't supposed to be fun. What were all the messages your parents gave you or the people who raised you gave you about sex? Which one of those rules do you still carry through with? Have you given up any of those rules? Have you changed any of them? And we can say, well, we're lesbians, and we're being lesbians, and we're being with other lesbians, and we're lesbians, and lesbians, 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 rah, 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 sis, boom, bah. I wish I could have been a cheerleader. Anyway, but the reality is that we haven't changed it hardly at all. I mean, yes, I mean, it is true. I suppose none of us were raised specifically to be like, oh, honey, when you grow up, I want you to find another woman to be with. I think this would be heaven. You know, not very many of us were raised that way. So, yes, we've broken that rule. But what have we done with it after we broke that rule? Are we stopping being sexual then with our girlfriends? Are we stopping being innovative? Because at least we can get away sort of with the lesbian missionary position, which is sort of your face in between her legs, you know, and then her face in between your legs. Or if you don't like oral sex, laying on top of each other, you know, fondling and rubbing and that kind of stuff, and you're allowed to, you know, maybe touch clitorises, maybe not. But there's going to be rules about what you can do. And what if it was that each time you were sexual, that you chose ahead of time when to be sexual? That you said, we're going to make a sex date? Actually made a sex date with your partner? Not a movie date, not a TV date, not a dinner date with friends, not a date to go shopping, not a date to clean the yard or clean the house or do your laundry at the laundromat and not get in the dryers because you're too cool. Not any of those dates. How come we can make those dates and we don't think it's weird, and we don't think it's unromantic, and we don't think it's destroying the relationship, and we don't think it's boring? Well, we do think it's boring, but we do go and do it anyway. So how is it that we're not willing to make sex dates? One of the things that I do know is part of the reason that we have a lot of sex at the beginning of relationships is because we're having a lot of sex. It's true. It's one of the major reasons. Because it feels good, and we get reinforced, and it's exciting, and it's fun, and we keep doing it, and we keep doing it, and we keep doing it. So when I tell people to set up sex dates, to actually set up sex dates, what I find is that they start having sex. If they start making sex dates regularly, they start having more sex. Sex is fun. They start making it more interesting. They get innovative. Because what you're going to find out is when you start apologizing to your parents, and you start breaking the rules, and you start bringing in innovation, it's going to build on itself. It starts to build up more and more. You do different. What if you drew straws as couples? You know, you had a little straw of initiator, passive. You had straws about somebody's introducing a new thing. Somebody gets to choose what we're going to do tonight. You tore up little pieces of paper with all kinds of little things that everybody's willing to do. You put them in a hat. You drew out what it was that you were going to do. Because a big part of the problem is we just simply get bored. We simply get bored. Like I said before, it's like watching the same movie 50 times. So what if you took out your own way of setting it up the same way every single time? What if you decided ahead of time, for instance, that nobody's going to have orgasms? So if somebody has a lot of orgasms and somebody doesn't have orgasms at all, that you take away that problem with the sex. What if you were willing to have sex in the bathtub, sex on the kitchen floor, sex on a countertop, sex in the living room, sex on a hallway, setting it up so that you do something different, that you let your teenagers out, that you go to the movies specifically to wet your seat. You know, you say to each other, let's go out on a date and get the seats wet at the movie theater. See, that you try and figure out ways in which you can be a lesbian and be in the movie theater and acting lesbianating. Somebody said to me, lesbianating. You know, see what you can do, how you can get your finger down her pants. Can you get your finger down her pants at the movie theater? What if you made these choices before you went out? What if you said when you came home that day, I'm going to be somebody different when I walk in the door? And go to a thrift shop and try new clothes on. And come walking in as somebody else. It's so scary for us, back to our little kids with the broken hearts, because we want to be, number one, we want her to love us best. We want her to love us just the way exactly we are, just like we were, you know, walked out of the door of ourselves and we came into her door of herself, and she just loved us no matter what. And we didn't have to change anything, and we didn't have to jump through any hoops, and we didn't have to do anything different, and she just loved us no matter what. And at a certain level, you know what? We all love each other no matter what. At that certain core, deep level, we love each other no matter who we are, at that very deep core level, just for who they are. But that doesn't mean that that counts always for our sex lives. It doesn't mean that our teenagers think that that's fun. You know, our teenagers want to have some fun. And it doesn't mean we can't bring our spiritual self with us, that place that just loves our partner, just on that very deep, kind, loving place. You know, that part that just loves ourselves and that part that just loves them. So often we complain about our partner, tell her all the things that we don't like, all the ways in which she's being that we don't like. What if we started to tell our partner only the things that we loved? What if we started to tell our partners the things that turned us on about her? The parts of her body that we really enjoyed. The things that she's done to our bodies or with our bodies in the time that we've been being sexual together over the course of the relationship. What if we started telling her the things that we liked about that? And we told her every day. And we told her on the telephone. And we told her when we were calling her up to tell her what else to get at the grocery store. And, oh, by the way, you know what? Remember that time that you just slipped your two little fingers in my vagina and we were watching TV and we just rocked back and forth? I loved that. You know, remembering those times, letting each other in on that, because we so often forget that. It's like, and would you get 2 apples? And this time, could you get the green ones? I've asked you every time to get green apples. But now you have to bring home red ones because you don't even listen to me. And that's the real problem here, you know. And you wonder why she doesn't want to fuck you, you know. She wants to fuck you all right with the green apples. Fuck you! So we've got lots of ideas here for fanning the flames. And it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning, because what we really need to do is jar ourselves out of those ruts. You know, because we're so good at building ruts that then we want to furnish them. So what if what we did is we made a pact with ourselves, and then later a pact with our partner if we want to, that we're going to let go of one rule about sex each week. Now, we're going to take it back after, don't worry. Don't worry. We're going to keep them in our little book. But we're going to give one up, and that she be willing to give one up, and we're going to see what it's like to bring something new into sex, to plan sex, to make sure sex happens in our lives, to bring the teenagers back, to love the babies. What if we could do all that? What if we were willing to have more fun than our parents ever had, for longer than they ever had it, just because we're here, just because we deserve it, just because everybody deserves it? What if we could have fun? So thank you all for being here and listening tonight. You did it.
For those of you that haven't heard me do this work about the little girl within with a broken heart, this will hopefully be a new adventure. I just got a letter from somebody. I was in Boston forever ago, it seems. I guess it was just last week, and she wrote and said that she had never even thought of this, and she'd been in therapy, and she was a therapist, and it's a very simple, it's probably because she was a therapist, for us therapists here. And that it's a very simple concept, but I think it's often hard for us to get because we're supposed to be grown up, and since most of us grew up in dysfunctional homes, we were never little kids, especially girls. And those of you that were the oldest daughters in dysfunctional homes were actually the oldest parent there, and often had to parent the younger kids, or the youngest, and the parents, or the oldest girl, period, whether you were the oldest child or not, just the oldest girl. Often there could be, 3, 4, or 5 brothers ahead of you, and if you were the oldest girl, you still were the oldest parent in the home. So I think that we have lots of reasons why we've forgotten about this little girl with a broken heart inside of us. And I think that the most important one is the fact that we were supposed to be grown-ups from the time that we were tiny. You know Winnie the Pooh, and they talk about Pooh, the bear of little brain? Well, the reason that they put that in there and kids get it is because their brains are really little. And they really can't think very much, and they really can't get context of time, and they really don't understand what really is yesterday and what's tomorrow and when's, my son's birthday was 3 days ago, and it's now when's my birthday? And, it's over now, he's 5, that's it, okay, now when am I going to be 6? So for those of you that thought that you were really big when you were 5 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 1, you were really so tiny that you can't even believe it, how tiny they are, these little teeny tiny kids. And I want to start first with the people that think they had a happy childhood. Not to ruin your illusion, I really don't mean that. But I want to start first with those people because there's always people who say to me, but I had a wonderful home life. I had really wonderful parents and a really happy home and a good extended family and all that. And I think that that's incredible. And I think that people that had those ought to write about it or something. I saw the column in the paper the other day, The Question Man, who, by the way, is written by a woman. Did you guys know that? Anyway, they asked what about the myth, is it a myth that families are happy? And everybody said families are happy, everyone's happy, everyone's happy. And I was like, the same myth is going on out there. Everyone's always so happy, and we're so happy. And that's what we got taught over and over again. At least that's what I got taught. We're all happy here, so what's your problem? How come you don't fit in? And so for those of you that actually did grow up in what you feel like is a happy home, the thing that I found in raising my little boy is the fact that the teeniest, weeniest little things break my child's heart. Just very small little things. A story that I don't really like to tell, but I think is really indicative of how quickly their hearts are broken, is the fact that when I was going to go, that we were late to school as usual and work, and I said to my son, I want you to go get your clothes on. We're leaving. We got to get out of here. We're leaving. Blah, blah. So I told him, 15 times. And then he was 3.5 at the time. Means a lot to him. We're late. And so at one point I said, we're late. What's that mean? At one point I said to him, if you're not ready, I am leaving. So I hear from the other room, Mommy, even if you leave me, I will still love you. Oh. So I put another $100 in his therapy fund and felt really, really, really bad. I figure even on a sliding scale, when he gets to therapy, it'll be $100, don't you suspect? So it was really, it was even that broke his heart, and it was like, oh, I get it. He doesn't get what that means. He doesn't get time. He doesn't get we're late. He doesn't even care if we're late. He doesn't care if we never go where we're supposed to go. And so what I did is I just sat down with him and said, I didn't really mean that. And the hard part is for those of you that were abused when you were growing up and have worked with abused children as adults, know that he really would. If I'd left him all day, if I'd come home and broken his arms, he would still love me. That's what's really frightening about the devotion of a child to their parent. So even if your heart was broken just in little ways, even if it was going to kindergarten, I like using kindergarten as a sort of a universal example that almost everybody here, I'm sure at one point, went to school. And most of us that are here in this room are in a generation where we didn't have daycare. We didn't go away from the time we're 6 months old like kids often do now. And so we came up with the fact that it was Mom and us, and maybe some of the younger kids that were around, but it was definitely Mom and us. Now, I had a brother who was 2 years older than me, so it was me and Mom for 2 years. Like, my brother disappeared somewhere, I don't know where he went during the day, but it was like me and Mom, coolness. And then she dropped me off in kindergarten, and some of you have heard the story about how she dropped me off in kindergarten, and there were the twins in kindergarten. Did you ever have twins that you went to school with? And maybe you were twins, and I'm sure it was awful being objectified. Well, I hated the twins because they had hair they could sit on, so beautiful. And the twins have such beautiful hair. And the twins are always so good. And it's like my mom drops me off with 30 other kids and the twins, and I'm no longer special. I'm no longer it. It's like even that really broke my heart. I never wanted to go to school. Why is it that kids cling to their moms or their caretakers when they drop them off at school? They don't want to be left there with a bunch of other kids and these other grown-ups who they might even really like, but they don't want to be there. And so it's very hard. So that may have been how your heart got broken. For adoptees that are here, imagine what you heard when you were in the womb. When we're this long in the womb, 4 months old in the womb, you can hear. And amniotic fluid, the fluid that's in the uterus, is a sound conductor. It's better than air. It's not like being in a swimming pool. It's like you can hear everything that's going on. Now, you may not understand the language that's out there, but you understand the language that's out there. You understand the energy that's coming from out there. And imagine if you were adopted, what you started hearing from your birth mother's own self, from perhaps your birth father, if she had contact with him at all, from her parents, maybe from his parents, maybe from her preacher, her rabbi, her priest, other people, other upstanding members of the community that wanted to tell her what a jerk she was. You know, imagine what was said. Imagine what you were hearing when you were in her womb. Imagine if you grew up in a violent home or an alcoholic home, other kinds of dysfunctional home in which there was a lot of violence and any kind of chaos. You know, if you grow up in a chaotic family, you know what it's like to sit down for like a meal. Imagine the chaos it created when your mother got pregnant. Imagine just the ongoing chaos it created about your mother being pregnant. So just imagine what you heard inside this little womb, this little safe chamber, and you're going, oh my God. And you're this big. When you're 4 months in the womb, you're this big. It's amazing what you do in the next 5 months, but I mean, it's probably because you're so scared, get me out of here. So it's very difficult for us to even imagine, unless you have little teeny children around you, it's really hard to really get how very tender they are. So I want to start with us tonight trying to get to that little girl inside of us that does have a broken heart. Those of you that are incest survivors, that remember that you were incest survivors, you know when your heart got broken. You know when you got so violated and so betrayed. You know when that happened. Those of you that had other experiences in which you were traumatized, terrified. Those who were abused under the age of 18, childhood sexual abuse of some sort, or just that ongoing trauma of life. And the problem here is that life is hard, and what we need is we need grown-ups around us, at least one grown-up around us, that can really help guide us through and keep us protected. The children that they've tested in Nigeria are so far and beyond the children in our culture. Because the Nigerian women in the traditional form keep their children wrapped to them, swaddled to them for the first 3 years of their life. They never go anywhere. They sleep with their children. They do everything with their children. Their children don't even wear diapers when they're first born, those first few months when they don't have control of bowels and their bladder. And they don't even wear diapers because the mothers and babies are so tuned into each other, and the mothers are so tuned into the kid that they know when they need to pee or shit. And they take them off in a bush and they unwrap them. And these kids are so beyond us in terms of their development at all kinds of levels because they have no concept of fear, no concept of lack of protection. And this is not for the mothers in here like myself to go, oh my God, I didn't keep my kids strapped to me for the first day. And I even knew that. So I really don't even have an excuse. It's next to impossible in our culture. You know, maybe some can do it. And so I'm not saying that. I'm simply saying that we don't have that kind of protection, and that's really what we need. However, inside each of us, even right now, is still that little girl with a broken heart that really still needs your protection. Also, many of us have a little boy inside of us. You know, now, 15 years ago in this town, I would have never said that. Because I would be dead as we stand here today. But even now, coalition politics of the 80s, you know, we can talk about our male energy inside, maybe. Woo! And it's been such a relief. So many women have come up to me after I've said that in places and said, oh, that's what it was. You know, how many of us dykes thought we were boys or wanted to be boys because the boys were having more fun, face it, you know? They were having more, we were playing with like our little Barbie dolls, a little Barbie and candy, we were playing little Barbie, and they're out running around, playing baseball, playing basketball, doing all that kind of stuff. Real stuff being alive in the world. At least when I grew up, girls didn't play baseball. We stood around and watched the boys play baseball, cheerleading. And how many women then, when they became teenagers, had to be girls? And they didn't know how to do this thing called girls. And you dress up and you had to wear high heels and had to wear makeup, and what was all this about? And you're supposed to go out with boys because they asked you out and you thought they were creeps. And the worst part, I think, back to the little girl with the broken heart, is when our girlfriends started going off with their boyfriends. And they used to spend the night with us now, you know, and now they went out with their boyfriends after the games on Friday and Saturday night. And we went home by ourselves and felt really, really sad. And if you didn't know that you were a lesbian as a teenager, you didn't even know why you were so sad. We wonder sometimes where our sexual energy goes when You know, our teenage years were spent in mourning, and we didn't even know that we were in mourning for these partners, you know, our lovers, our girlfriends. They were our buddies. They were our best pals. And we didn't even know that that was part of what we wanted from them. So I'd like us to be with our little girls and little boys with their broken hearts tonight. And if you could, just for a minute, and I always know there's always juvenile delinquents in the crowd, and I had a juvenile delinquent for a brother, so I really know the juvenile delinquents and their attitudes really good. You know, I really can spot them a mile away. I can be in an audience with, you know, I have 400 people in an audience, and I can just pick out all the juvenile delinquents that are like, oh, God. Some chick comes here from California and now starts talking to us about little girls with fitters with a broken heart. They're great. You know, and of course they're always with the therapy junkie, you know, who's sitting elbowing them, going, see, look it, see, this is exactly what I was talking about. If you went to therapy, you'd know what she was talking about. This is why I think you should be in therapy, because you need to get in touch with the little girl inside you, and you wouldn't be so mean if you did that. I mean, really, would that be an incentive for you to go to therapy? Imagine if she was in therapy, she would quit therapy. So if you could contain your elbows and not elbow your juvenile delinquent anti-therapy girlfriends. Because we all know that are standing outside you juvenile delinquents that is your little girl with a broken heart that just has her little casing on it. So even if you have this attitude and you're in this audience or you're listening to this tape, here we are. So see if you're willing to bring with that little girl here with you and bring her here tonight with us. There's plenty of room. You know, that's the other thing that those little kids learned is that there's just no room. You know, there's just no room for them. And here tonight, here listening to this, you have plenty of room to bring these little kids. This space is infinite. We can bring as many kids here as we need to. You can bring your teenagers with their stereos. You can bring your little teeny weeny babies that are trying to decide whether to stay on the planet or not. You can bring your broken-hearted little kids, whatever sex. Just bring them here tonight. If it's too hard for you to put her on your lap, that's okay. Set her next to you. If you're listening to this with your lover, do not take your lover's broken-hearted little kid and put them on your lap. Please. The major mistakes of lesbian relationships is they go, child care for life. You take care of my baby, I'll take care of yours, okay? Okay, great, it's a deal, it's a deal. It's all unspoken, but it's like this deal that we make. And then, of course, we hate the way they take care of our kid, and we tell them so as often as possible. And did I tell you the 55 ways in which you pissed me off today? I didn't? Well, sit down and listen. You never listen to me. Sit down here and listen. So please do this with your own baby, with your own kids, with your own toddlers, with your own teenagers, with your own young adults, whatever sex they are. If you can't conjure up an image of this little kid, think of a family photo in which, you know those family photos in which you look at that and go, how did I get in this family? That's all I want to know. Or the one in which you remember looking at a family photo and you were really sad, or you looked really lonesome, or you looked really scared and nobody around seemed to get it. Whether or not that was the reality all the time in your life, that was the reality for that kid. You know, the families that used to love to take pictures of the kids crying, you know, a lot of people like that. Their families used to love to take pictures of the kids crying. Oh, it looks so cute. Just remember what that must have been like. So if you can't get an image of that, if you can't get an image, this is not meant to be another way so you can hate yourself. Get an image of the last time or a feeling of the last time you were scared. Scared about anything. The last time you were scared walking down the street. And you can say, well, my grown-up could be scared of that. Well, that's true. But just that's the feeling that that little kid has. The little kid with a broken heart has that feeling all the time. You think you have a part inside that's not scared all the time. You do. Every one of us has a little kid that's scared all the time. That's why we never never know if we're doing the right thing or the wrong thing, or should I do this thing or should I do that thing, or should I wear this or wear that? It's because you've got that little kid in there who's scared that she's not right, that she's not good. So let's get that little kid here, okay? And those kids, all of them. If you want to close your eyes, great. If you don't, that's okay too. Some kids are too scared to close their eyes, so pay attention to this. You don't have to close your eyes if you don't want to. Just bring the kids here. Breathe as deep as you can. See what you can do about bringing her on your lap. Let her just sit beside you if you can't have her be on your lap. A lot of people think that they don't know how to do this because nobody did it for them. But there's some place that is like this universal caretaker that knows how to do this. Just see if you can get there just for a moment. You don't have to be the best. You don't have to do it right. Just making room for her is a miracle for some kids. See if you can get an age for this little girl or this little boy. You can tell how old they are. Oftentimes, if you can get an age for these kids, then you can start to tune in, well, what was going on? I lived in this place at that age. Why was I so sad? Why would I go to that time? Why would there be pain attached to that house? I don't remember anything there. You don't always need to know the why. It's the kids don't care about why. They just want you to hold them. They just want you to pay attention to the fact that they're here. So see if you can get an age. Now hold the babies, hold these kids, hold the teenagers. Just let them sit beside you or hold them while we go through this for a moment. If you haven't got an age for them or you still haven't got an image, it doesn't matter because she's here with us. He's here with us. It doesn't matter. This is really not a way to hurt yourself anymore. What we're here for is to learn how to stop hurting ourselves and how to start loving those little tiny beings. Now, if you can, for just a moment, really pay attention to that energy of that little tiny one. Just for a moment here. And I want you to ask, how could this baby, how could this little one be anything but perfect? We spend so much of our time hating ourselves. And imagine how this baby, how this little child could be worth such hate. How could this baby have possibly done anything that could make you hate her, even for an instant? Even because last week you did something you didn't like, that's still not a reason to hate yourself. So imagine for a moment, if you will, how could this baby, how could this little one be worth such concentrated hatred? Now, if you're going through all the things that you did as a kid, all the bad things, well, then I did that, and then I did that, and I drove my mother crazy, and she had other kids to take care of, and I was so bad. You could not have been that bad. Then how come they treated me like that? Well, part of the reason that they treated you like that is because they were so tiny. These grown-ups that were taking care of us were so young and so scared, and they had to pretend that they were so right that it scared them. It scared them to have to act so right all the time. So instead of letting this little kid know that they were so scared of being right, they just pretended they were right. And what they did instead is that they got angry. And they got mean, and they got pushy, and they got controlling, because they didn't know how to deal with being so scared. Keep holding this baby. If it's too hard keeping your eyes closed, it's okay to open them. You know, I was raised a Catholic. You won't go to heaven because you keep your eyes closed. Do what takes care of this baby. Sometimes keeping your eyes closed just keeps the stimulus from outside from coming in. That's what the keeping your eyes closed does. So if you want to keep your eyes closed, go ahead. If you don't, it's okay. So let's imagine for a moment, for those of you that were abused, and it feels real scary for me to be saying your parents were really scared and they didn't do this except for the fact that they were so scared and so little. And you've gotten to a place finally when you can be mad at them and you can really be angry for what they let put you through and what they let happen to you. I'm not saying to stop being angry. I'm simply saying to forgive this baby, this little child, these little children inside of us, to forgive them. That's who I'm saying, is to forgive. Imagine, if you will, for a moment, where inside your body this child stays. Most of us have a favorite place that our body gets stressed in. I think that's where our babies live. They're all like crammed in there in your tummies or your shoulders or your legs or your hips, your arms, your face, your breasts. Imagine where this baby lives. And again, if you can't come up with a place, this is not a test. This is simply a discovery. If you don't come to a place immediately, go to the place where you hold yourself very tightly. Just imagine right now, where are your muscles tight? That's probably where your baby lives. And imagine, if you will, taking that baby back to that place, because part of the reason that it's tight is because you're protecting the babies. You're protecting the little kids. It's a wonderful thing to do for them. You know, when babies are first born, they swaddle them. You know, the word swaddle? I mean, that they really do. They tie the babies up practically. They wrap them in really warm blankets and tie the blankets or wrap the blankets very, very tightly to give the baby a sense of security, a sense of where their boundary is. And they'll tell a new mom about how that makes the baby feel safe. And that's what you're doing inside. You don't need to hate the stress. You don't need to hate the tightness. You know, in our over-therapized communities, we often, I still carry my stress here and I'm such a bad person. No, you're not bad. This is protection for your baby. It's okay. Whatever that kid needs, you give them. The opposite of what we were raised with. Isn't that amazing? The opposite of what we were raised with. What we were raised with is, you know, don't spoil that baby. Don't let that baby get out of line. Don't give that kid what it needs. You know, those of us that were raised the Dr. Spock generation only pick up the baby every 4 hours. You don't pick up the baby in between. Don't pick up that baby when they cry. They'll manipulate and cry to get you to pick them up all the time. Who wouldn't? If I could get somebody to pick me up now, I would cry as much as possible. I would cry every single second of every single day if it would get somebody to pick me up. What could be bad with this? Why wouldn't all of us want someone to pick us up at every single moment? Well, because we're supposed to learn how to do it on our own and how to survive in the world by ourselves and how to be independent. Well, thank you very much. And the truth is, each one of us would just love to have somebody pick us up. And it's okay for those babies to want that. So if you would, take your baby and put her back inside you. Put him back inside you. Put him back where they live. They're not used to being out so much, you know. They're hidden. They're little secrets. They're all of our little secrets. We take the babies and the kids and the toddlers and the teenagers and the young adults and let's put them back inside. And when you're ready to come back to this space and be here again, do that. Making sure that your babies are safe, your kids are safe, even if you don't think you're such a good mommy. Even if you don't think you can do this parenting thing very well. This is practice. There's no such thing as perfection, except in these teeny babies. There's no such thing as perfection. So you can't be perfect at this. You can only practice this. One of the things that I think is so important in our work in trying to heal is to take care of these babies, because one of the things that happens is that these kids tyrannize us. We have all been in homes in which the kids run the home. The kids tyrannize the parents. There are kids who run the household. And when I was saying give the kids everything they need, I do mean that. And another thing that kids need is to know what grown-ups do and what kids do. I remember when we were all hippies, you know, in the days when we were all hippies. I mean, some of you may have missed the 60s, but in the 60s, I remember this very distinctly because I hung out in a commune, you know, we're all living there, all the generations, and everybody's grooving, everybody was everybody, and this one girl was going to be 12, and so we were going to give her a lit of dope. We thought this was really cool, and her mother, like, flipped out and said, there are some things that grown-ups do and some things that kids do. And she is a kid, and I am a grown-up, and she can't do this yet. It was so shocking. It was like, oh, wow, limits, man. Like, that's so uncool, you know. And she was so right. She was so completely right. And I am sure it was a great relief somewhere in that 12-year-old's mind. While on the outside, of course, she was throwing a fit, just like along with the rest of us. But on the inside, I'm sure there was some relief. Oh, good, I don't have to do that yet. I don't have to act like a bunch of idiots like those grown-ups do. There are things that grown-ups do, and there are things that kids do. It's one of the things I tell people when they're going to job interviews. Don't send your 4-year-old. It's one of our biggest problems with work. It's one of our biggest problems with raising children outside of our bodies. It's one of the biggest problems in doing nearly anything in which we feel completely incompetent, completely frustrated and freaked out. And what am I doing here? Tune in to see how old you are. If you sent your 4-year-old on a job interview, you probably aren't going to get the job. What I tell people is really to visualize childcare. Call up a buddy. Say, I've got a job interview. I have got to stay at least 25 or so, you know. And so, like, I'm sending all my kids over. There's about 80 million of them. And I'm sending them all over to you. Have you got, like, I'm going to be there from 1 to 4. And then I tell people, you know, imagine during the whole time you're there that you know, your buddy is taking care of all the kids. So you can keep being the grown-up. Because kids shouldn't have to go to work. Child labor laws were for a reason. Kids should not have to go to work. Kids should not be having sex with grown-ups. A lot of kids were forced to have what I consider to be violence, sex with grown-ups, when they were kids. And it's not the way it should be. Kids should not be having sex with grown-ups. Your kid may be running your sex life, too. You may be sending your kid, or a kid may come out when you're being sexual. The kid may be stopping your sex life, not having sex at all, because your tyrannizing kid is running the show. Now, it's not easy. When we first get to know this little girl with a broken heart, it's not easy to all of a sudden just have your grown-up back and the little kid's there and the grown-up's here and everybody's all set and everybody's separated and it's all really cool and the grown-up goes to work and the little kid only comes out when you're holding them, you know. Of course you can't do that. It takes a long time often to heal that little girl with a broken heart before she's really willing to let you go off in another room with a grown-up and be sexual with them. Very important that there's a difference between the little kid and the grown-up. And it doesn't mean teenagers can't have sex with teenagers. I mean, I'm an advocate of go have sex with as many people as you can have sex with, as long as you're not making babies, as long as you're having safe sex and all that kind of stuff. Go practice. Go make assholes out of yourself when you're teenagers, you know? Go for it. And let me tell you about birth control, let me tell you about safe sex, and as long as you do that, just go do as much as you can so that you don't wreak havoc when you're a grown-up. And you're dragging a bunch of kids around with you while you're acting like a 13-year-old, you know? I mean, just go be a 13-year-old. Do it. And I often tell lesbians that a lot because, of course, we were thwarted. We weren't lesbians when we were teenagers. Or if you were a lesbian when you were a teenager, often I hear the stories there mixed as well. If you knew you were a lesbian as a teenager, it was really hard often, depending on what part of the country you grew up in, what era. Some, it was a relief because they did get to practice lesbianism as teenagers, but most of us didn't. Because we need that energy. You know, that energy got stopped for us, and we need that kind of energy. What's important is paying attention. Who's having sex here? Who's being sexual? Why am I being sexual? What's the purpose? Why am I not being sexual? Who am I taking care of here? So important to take care of your babies. I tell people to go out and get baby dolls. This is when I really get the attitude, you know. Oh, sure, a baby doll. Oh, right. I'm just going to like go right now and get a baby doll. That sounds like a great idea, JoAnn. And then people say to me, won't my stuffed animals work? But no, what you need is a baby doll. And I don't mean a Barbie doll. I mean a baby doll. And I tell people to go out and get baby dolls and get the baby doll a bed and set her up her own room so that she has a place to be. And people think I'm nuts. The most important thing is to watch yourself around the whole idea of getting a baby doll, because this is probably how the people who raised you treated you. They probably laughed at you. They probably taught you you weren't important. They probably ridiculed you. They probably told you you were stupid. They probably told you you were selfish and crazy and foolish and wasted your money and wasted your time and didn't do what they told you to do. Pay attention. It's amazing what going to get a baby doll can do. How often you're on your way and you forget where you were going and you don't go. How many toy stores you go into or thrift shops you go into and come back out of. You don't even remember what you went in there for. You went in there for something. And how many people have told me stories about getting their baby dolls and telling the clerk this elaborate lie about who the baby's for. It's for my niece's cousin's third daughter's on her left side. It's like, who cares? You know, the clerk is going, as if the clerk cares who you're buying the baby doll for, but it's our embarrassment that we should buy a baby doll for ourselves. Oh no. There have been people that have baby dolls that are different races than they are on the outside. They buy a baby doll of a different race because there's some other race happening inside of them. It's amazing what couples do with class differences when they come up against going to buy baby dolls, and one wants to buy a baby doll at FAO Schwartz and one wants to buy a baby doll at the thrift store. It's amazing what can happen when we start to get our baby dolls. And how hard it is to get ourselves a baby. The reason why I think it's so important to get a baby doll is because it's a constant reminder of that little kid with a broken heart. Because I will tell you, we will have spent an hour talking about the little girl with a broken heart. You'll walk out of here, and in 5 minutes you'll be talking about something else. And in a month, you'll remember like about 3 things I said. It's amazing how much we hate these babies. It's so hard to see. So scary to see. And that's why I say get a baby. And the reason I say to get her own bed or his own bed and his own room, and there's no excuses. There's always a bathroom, even in a studio apartment. There's always a corner that you can put up tack up a little blanket, make a little room for this little baby. And this is what I say. Now watch the discomfort. Watch how scary this is to even think of it. And it's coming up like it's silly and it's goofy and it's laughing, but that's not the energy. It's nervous. We're all nervous. We're anxious. I'm anxious to keep talking about it. I want to stop talking about it now. Okay, let's talk about logarithms, okay? Let's talk about something important. You know, okay, like when do you go to work in the morning, okay? Like I want to talk about that. Like how do you get there? Let's talk about the buses or cars or something, okay? Let's talk about something really important. Pay attention how scary it is to talk about these babies. I especially say for them to have their own room, especially for women who were sexually abused as children, so that these babies don't sleep in your bed with you. These babies have their own space to be in. And I often tell people that when they get scared while they're having sex is they get up and they go to their baby's room and they rock their baby and they take care of their baby and they put their baby back in her own bed in her own room where she is safe. And the grown-ups can't come in there. Only her mommy comes in there. Really important, too. Watch who you have take care of your baby. Watch where your baby goes during the day when you go to work. I tell people to bring their babies to show me in my office. It takes months for them to get a baby. Then it takes months for them to bring the baby. Then they leave the baby in the car. Oh, I forgot my baby. Then they bring the baby up in a brown paper bag. It's amazing what we think of our babies. Ew, yeah, and I don't want anybody to see me carrying around this doll baby. Ew, my God. Really, what do you think, they're going to arrest you? Oh, my God, there's a woman there with a doll baby. Jesus, call the cops. Oh, I'll keep her occupied. Okay, come in. Hey, lady, come over here. Hey, come over here. I mean, what are they going to do? Nobody's going to say anything to you. They're not even going to notice. Are you kidding? People are thinking about, their sister-in-law is going out with their cousin's aunt, and they're thinking about, the grocery store clerk that shortchanged them this morning and the guy that tried to mug their brother the other night. They're not thinking about you carrying a baby doll. They're not thinking about you. That's the worst part. And that's our baby. We want everybody to be thinking about us all the time. Except when we think they shouldn't be thinking about it. And that's our babies. That's our babies. So that's what I say, is get a little girl for you, or a little boy for you, or one of each. And watch what it's like. And you might make a mental note now if your birthday hasn't come yet this year. Or, one of the high holy days is coming up, or 4th of July or something. Valentine's Day. And just make a mental note for yourself as to what day you're going to note if you've gotten yourself a baby doll or not. And this is not to say that when 4th of July comes and you haven't gotten yourself a baby doll that you go, oh my God, it's 4th of July, see, you jerk, you haven't got a baby doll. You could be cured by now. No, a baby doll won't cure you either, sorry. And it's not a place to beat yourself up again. It's a place to just note, look at how unwilling I am to take care of and love that little girl inside me, that little boy inside me. If you come up with 30 other ways to take care of that kid so you don't have to get a baby doll, more power to you, that's great. It's just that the baby doll is something to hold and to rock and to take care of and to buy clothes for and feed and give a bottle. They have these bottles that you turn them upside down and the milk disappears, or the juice. It's like magic. It's just amazing what you can do. The baby that didn't get done for you. Didn't have the clothes you needed, didn't have the food you wanted, didn't have the love you needed or the protection you needed or the caring you needed. I heard this phrase when I was in Seattle last year that said, it's never too late to have a happy childhood. This is a way to help heal that, because you're never going to make it be different. And people say to me, well, if I do this or if I do other things to help take care of my little kid, another thing that I say to people is make a little altar. Make a little altar, a guru altar to your baby. Get out pictures, ask your parents or whoever has the family pictures, the oldest sister, to send you some pictures of yourself when you were little. And put up a little altar, forget the gurus, put up a little altar to yourself, to this little baby. Put up candles and flowers and fruit, and just, because they have so much to tell you. You know what is so amazing is when I work with people with their pictures, their old childhood pictures, you can tell when the baby got so devastated. You can tell when that kid quit knowing that she was it, that she knew everything. You can tell when she forgot that she knew everything. Get the baby up just before that picture that knows everything. Put little candles up, little flowers. It could be may have been when you were a very tiny baby was the last time that you knew everything. So get a little picture of yourself as a little baby. People say to me, so if I do these things, if I heal this baby, if I take care of this baby, so does that mean she'll go away? Here we are again. Oh, mercy, mercy, mercy. Why would you want her to go away? She's so sweet. He's so good. Why would you want these little kids to get lost? They're so incredible. It's like when my kid says things to me like, Mom, you know what fainting is? Fainting is like dying, only you don't really die, you faint. Of course. Brilliant. It's just incredible. Or when he says things to me like, Mom, you don't have to clap every time I sing a song. It's like, oh, right, I get it. I'm the one that travels around the country so people will clap for me. I got it. It's not your trip. This is Mom's sicko trip. You don't need to do this. That's right. It's like, remember, what baby needs what? He doesn't need that. That's part of why our childhoods got a little bit weird, is because our parents gave to us what it is that they needed to be giving to themselves. So just pay attention to how much you want to get rid of her. You see, these kids always had the childhood they had. They will never not have that childhood. You can only now guide them through these troubled waters that are here. I know. That's what this is about, healing a little girl with a broken heart, the little boy with a broken heart, all those kids inside with their broken hearts. So for just a minute, I want you to get to this place that's really willing to love this kid. Just for a minute. I'm actually going to time a minute, the longest minute that ever was. Not kidding you. You will not believe how long this minute takes. Just for a minute. If you're willing to close your eyes, do so. If you're not, that's okay too. And we're going to sit for a minute and go to that place that's willing to love this little kid with a broken heart. Maybe we should do it for 30 seconds. Let's do it for 30 seconds. See if you can do it for 30 seconds. Okay, we're going to start right here for 30 seconds. Okay, that was 30 seconds. Breathe deep. How hard it is to be willing to love them. Feel what your body feels like to have had 30 seconds of willingness to love your babies. And I also want to say in closing that the fact that you've listened to this for however long you've been listening proves that you're willing to love and heal these little girls with a broken heart. And thank you all for doing that for that long a time.